So my name is Barry Loveland, and I use the pronouns he, him, his, and I am here on behalf of the LGBT Center of Central Pennsylvania History Project. And today's date is March 6, 2021, and I'm here for an oral history interview with Sabrina Bledsoe. This interview is taking place via Zoom from Sabrina's home in Harrisburg. And Sabrina, do we have your permission to record this interview today?
Yes.
Very good. And we have a consent form for you to sign or read over and complete and sign and send back at the end of the interview. And we sent that to you by email. Okay, so let's get started with the interview. First, if you could say and spell your full name so that we have that for the transcription.
Yeah, it's Sabrina Bledsoe, and it's Sabrina Dare, and it's hyphenated Bledsoe.
Very good. And could you give your preferred pronouns too?
I've never been asked, but I'm glad you did. She and her.
Okay, thank you. And I assume you, I shouldn't assume anything. I'll ask you, how do you self-identify in terms of sexual orientation?
I don't really know, but we'll just say straight.
Okay.
It depends. I'll just say.
Straight ally, I think.
Yeah.
It would be a good way to characterize it.
Okay.
So what is your date of birth and where were you born?
April 18th, 1960, and I was born in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Now this is a little different from our standard interview because the unique situation that your family was involved in owning several LGBTQ bars in Harrisburg. So I'd like to have you talk about your memories of that. And let's start with your grandfather. What was your grandfather's name?
George Dare.
Okay, and this is your father's father, correct?
Yes, uh-huh.
Good. So what are the earliest memories of your grandfather?
Yeah, I only have a picture of him when I was little. He died when I was very young, like around 3 or 4. And I don't really have much memory of him. I know I've heard like things about him, like he was involved as a gangster and stuff. And I know he had a lot of property in Harrisburg, owned a lot of things. And he owned these businesses that I learned as I got older, who owned them. But I do remember that picture of me sitting on his lap and he was nice to me. So that's about all I know of him, unfortunately. Or with my grandma, Mary Dare, his wife.
Were there stories though that the family told about him that you can recall?
Yeah, that he was a bootlegger, and that's what he was supposed to be, a bootlegger, and owned. He was a good cook and owned the restaurants and stuff. I don't really, unfortunately, know a lot. I'm going to be I'm in touch with somebody else in my family. In fact, they just talked to me today that might be able to give us some more. So I hope I can help you with that.
Okay, good. And so do you remember hearing anything about the motivation that he had for opening a bar?
No, I don't, unfortunately, because my father ran the bar. But in fact, I'm as surprised as I guess out of I don't know as much as you, because when I just got that picture of my grandfather in front of the bar, and I didn't know that it was, I only thought of when my dad had it from the 50s and then in the 60s when I was a little girl. And so I was surprised that in the 30s to see that picture of my grandfather. And I think that's very interesting. So he was, might have been quite a character, I mean, not a character, but an interesting, I didn't mean that word, but an interesting person. So I did not know what went on with the clock bar. I don't know if he was called that in the 30s. But until I found that picture teacher who I was just speaking about, relative only gave me that picture. So hopefully I could find some more. I've been thinking of it a lot lately because I didn't hear much about grandfather George Jared. Not that he was mean though. He didn't like my mom, but he was nice. But so I found that interesting. I'd like to find out more about that for the community. Yeah.
Yeah, our research showed that the clock bar opened in 1938. I went through the city directories in Harrisburg to find that out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, apparently, and I guess he was the first owner of the bar. So yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And did you, well, let's talk more about your father since your memories of your grandfather are kind of sketchy. But when, what are your memories of your father? What's your father's name, by the way?
Stuart with the Stuart, Dare, Stuart Witherow Dare. And those memories in the clock bar and with my dad was probably when I was 5 the most in 1965. And we would go to the clock bar a lot. My dad would make, unfortunately, we lost a lot of our things in the pictures. My father passed away saving a sailboat and all the pictures and movies we had, and he had all that. And my sister wanted to keep that, and I wish she would have, because we're having, my sister and I are meeting again soon, and I'm going to get some more pictures. But she begged my dad, and he wouldn't part with them, and unfortunately, they're all gone. So we had these pictures, these movies. My dad used to let me, and my mother was married before, so I had keep looking at four older brothers, and we would go into the clock bar and pretend we were drinking, and my one brother would pretend he was bartending, and we'd be at the bar, and we had these, I still picture them, these amazing movies in that, that mid-century modern bar. So that was a probably first memory of it. And I remember the front door was really cool because it was the blocks that were made in Pittsburgh or in Philadelphia, those clear blocks.
Oh,
The
glass blocks.
Corning, right? Corning, I think it is. So that was the door. That door was so cool. And then being little, and my parents, my dad being at the bar all the time, and he would always, I have these cool pictures of every New Year's he'd come home, and we lived on 2nd Street. In fact, my house is still there, 3228 North 2nd Street. And he would come home with these boxes of the Flurry favors from New Year's Eve, and we'd celebrate right after he got off. So, and then as I got a little older, maybe 5, so I was about 5 then or 6, then my dad was at the bar. I remember my mom always having these interesting guys over. I don't want to say their names in case, but one of them, I really remember his name. The other one I'm trying to remember. And they were gay, and they were my mom's friends, and they would come over while my dad was working at the clock bar and have dinner with my mom, and they'd discuss, show movies and stuff, theater. And they both had great jobs. One was a court reporter, and the other one worked for the state. The other one worked in, I think, Philly or somewhere. And so I remember those memories. And then when my dad would come home, he would have dinner with my mom. They were all friends, these guys. And I have paintings here. Oh, you can't, I'll show you another time, from these artists that I'd like to look into research too, because they painted pictures of my mom. My sister just gave me that one, of my dad, of my brother when he was little. And these were all customers of the clock bar. So I find that interesting. Maybe we could look into that more too. And then I remember, the stories my mom told me, then how she met my dad. She lived above the clock bar, and the story, she was from England, and her first husband, she met in England and got married and moved to Millersburg. And then she moved to Harrisburg above the clock bar, and she would tell me these great stories when my dad would be out doing other businesses, because he had the Commerce Diner. And I really don't know a lot of what others, I'm working into research in that. And so he'd come in, and my mom would be on the bar dancing with all her gay friends and doing show tunes. And he'd say, Marty, you have to quit drinking. And she did. So I love those stories. They were great. Yeah. So that's from that point. And then I remember getting a little older, and my mom telling me, so that was 65, but telling me, they always were real open with us and telling me about the bar being rated, and that even at an early, I'll start crying because I'm getting a little sentimental. At an early point, I never distinguished until in high school when someone said your dad's gay because he tucks his pants in his boots. I never judged or distinguished, it's just people. Same with people of diversity. My house was always filled. My dad always had, I'll start crying, sorry, always gave people jobs that back then it was awful. They had the state hospital, and we always had someone staying with us that he gave a job to. And we always had someone, like when we had this really nice black guy, Rufus, who was involved in our life all the time. And so that's how my parents were. It was very interesting. And then they'd go to New York on the weekends, do a lot of cultural stuff, and they always had one of their gay friends with them. And see, I remember this hasn't to do with the gay bar, but I remember being real little on 2nd Street, and I had this little friend, and I guess my dad was babysitting me that day, and we played dress up, and it was so cute. I can still think it. I dressed as a boy, and the little boy, I remember his name, I don't want to say it, but he wanted to dress as a girl. And my dad just then, I think, wow, that was really cool, my dad. Anyone else would have freaked out, right? My dad probably thought it was adorable. So those are some good memories I have.
Great. And you mentioned about these paintings. Do you have them in your possession?
Yeah. Do you want me to point one out now or to another time?
Well, that's okay. We can maybe toward the end of the interview, we can try to do
Yeah,
that.
I have the, yeah.
And I was going to say it might be good to photograph them.
Yeah, I do.
And then we could possibly include some of those in the collection, the photograph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just spoke with I don't want to mention his name yet, but someone, a relative. In fact, they just reached out to me today, but I kind of told them, I have a Zoom interview about the family, and they have more stories, and we just reconnected and stuff. Like, I didn't know the part of the family was involved with the clock bar too. So I'm looking into getting us a lot more information, and so I'm sure they could maybe even give us some more information about Grandpa George Dare too. So that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you remember about the appearance of the clock bar from when you were in there? Like the interior decor and things like that?
It had the long bar. It was real, that long mid-century modern bar and tables. And I'm sorry, that's all I remember because I was very little. And I was more at the Commerce Diner and the City Line Diner. But that's what I remember of the clock bar.
Okay. Do you recall if there were clocks in the clock bar?
Yeah, I don't even remember seeing clocks. I just remember I rarely, most thing that interested me because I was so little was Shirley Temples. My dad would always make me a Shirley Temple, and we would pretend we were drunk. That was it. And my brother, he even let us pretend we were smoking cigarettes. And I remember George took it too far. My older brother, God bless him. So those are most of my memories. I think my dad kept me because we were little, and my mom was at home then with us. So that's about all the memories. I remember going there and seeing, I remember the booths, the decor, but it's a lot. My sister but she was too little, but she has a great memory. I'm going to see if she remembers any more than I do. Gosh, her memory's better than mine. So I'm sorry. My mom, you would have loved her and she would have loved you. And I know a lot of people say their my mom was amazing, and what a memory. And it's too bad but they were giving her this for her memory. She had such stories. She could have told us so much, but oh well, I'm trying to do that in her place.
Let's see. So what role did your father play in the clock bar? He was the bar manager, bartender?
He was the owner. Yes, he did 10 bar because somebody told me that's where he used to go, and he was underage, and Stu, that was my dad, used to serve him. And then my other uncle, I'm sure Mark, I know he says he's happy that I'm doing this. His dad was my Uncle George Dare, who they were him and my dad worked together. In fact, Mark didn't know this. My mom dated George Dare before she married my dad. So they both were bartenders. And then I guess it was, I'm trying to find out when it was called the White Elephant, because I know there was a lot of jazz going on, and that was in the later 60s, I guess after the raid. Because I think what happened was it was sold, but I think it was still stayed in the family, that they got a new liquor license, because that's what I remember a lot of, the White Elephant.
Well, we have we documented kind of the succession of bars at that location. The next bar that opened was called the 400 Club.
Okay, maybe that's what it was called. I
And I believe, yeah, and I believe that was your family owned that as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember that name now. And then I don't know where the White Elephant, maybe that was just a nickname. Did you ever find anything on that?
No, but I think I'd heard that that was a bar in a different location.
Was it?
So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I've got to do a little bit more research
Yeah,
on that, I
and
guess.
my relative would be able to tell me that too. I'm going to be meeting with him for lunch, so we'll find out about that. But yeah, I always thought the White, and then when I started reading your book and reading things that you did, I was like, oh, the 400 Club, yeah. So that was the jazz bar there. Oh, or maybe I had them both at that time. So yeah, my dad ran the place. He was always in and out. Funny, my dad was a handsome, amazing man, and he walked in one day, and my mom was at the bar, and she was with her squad, and he walked in, and he had just shaved his head, and he said, "Don't I look like Yul Brynner?" to my mom, and they said, "Marty, he's in love with you." That was her nickname. My mom's name was Maureen, so her friends told her that. Yeah, and then he got married. So I thought that was a good story. So yeah, he was always in and out, when I was little, he would be stopping at the like when places went out of business, he would buy furniture and stuff, or ordering the supplies, soda, ice. I remember going to that place, I think on Cameron Street or somewhere, to get ice for the bar. Remember those memories? I was traveling a lot and with my dad. I was my dad's girl, so I remember that.
You'd mentioned to me before the interview about that your dad also was a musician of sorts.
Yes,
and that he a number of jazz artists would stop into the bar and he would jam sessions with them.
Yeah, he did.
Talk a little bit about your memories of that.
Yeah, he played the bongos, and my sister just gave me some great slides that I'm going to be getting developed of him with the bongos. Sorry to go off the subject, but we are going to her storage soon. She wants me to help her, so hopefully I can find some more. So he played the bongos, and then he had Buddy Rich, who was a drummer, used to come there and play. And I remember stories of him because my brother got in trouble for being on his drums, and my dad said he was always an asshole, mean. Buddy Rich was, and Stan Kenton, and then I'm trying to find out my cousin. I'm going to ask him. I wish my mom was here. The name of a very famous jazz player, and it just slipped my mind. That used to come over after he would be in town, and I'll try to. I hadn't be Glenn Miller. It's somebody else. I can't remember who it is. I'll work on that too. So yeah, he was very popular. And there was a family, I don't know if I can mention people's names, another family, that house is still on Front Street. And he was a jazz player too. And that house is still there. It's something maybe off the record, I'll give you, we could find out about them. And he jammed with my dad too. So maybe that family we could get back in touch with, which is interesting since I put that picture up on the Facebook. A lot of people are reaching out, so that are a lot of memories to share. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, we had gotten some information about the Clock Bar, that it was a jazz club at some point in its history, or at least had some live jazz music.
Yeah.
So that was from there's a book in the Dauphin County Historical Society that was a history of the jazz age in Harrisburg. So it talks a little bit about the Clock Bar. So
that's cool. Thanks. I'll have to check that out too.
So let's talk about the bar raid. And what sort of stories you'd heard about that. Um, and that was in 1965.
Yeah. That one I'd heard because then I got older and my mom would talk to me more and that and these were her friends too, because that's where she met. Yeah, I didn't know my dad yet, I believe, before she lived above. Yeah, that's right. She started dating my uncle and she'd hang out and she was the life of the party, listen to jukebox, they're dancing and stuff. And then then she started going out with my dad. And I remember the story, them telling me that the liquor control board came in and have been what is it, scoping it, keep an eye, I can't think of the word, a case in the joint, we'll say it that way, case in the joint. And then one night they said that they raided it, and that's all the story I have. But before they raided it, they went in the men's room, at least one of them did, and propositioned or the other, and got something happened in the men's room. And then that night they raided them. And so that's the only story I know about that. I know it's, in fact, I was interested to see that you had wrote about that. So I'm going to find out some more. I'll try to. And then I don't remember it closing or whatever. I think my dad just worked at the diner more. And then I heard about the jazz, then the jazz got involved in my life. But my parents were still friends with all their friends, they still continue to come to our house and stuff,
And do you know if they had ever mentioned about the bar being raided before that? Was that the first time, or was that?
That's the only memory I know. I mean, maybe it has, but that's all that the only one I heard. Maybe when before, but when my grandfather, but I don't know much about that era at all.
Did your father or mother ever talk about what happened to some of the bar patrons who were arrested or whatever?
No, I don't. Yeah.
Do you remember them talking about anything about the rules they had to follow about serving patrons back then?
No, sorry, don't.
Okay. So what other bars do you recall that your family owned?
Then we had I know we had the diners too, but then we had trying to think if there's anything in between. I don't think so. Okay, then we had the Golden Coach. It was a restaurant, and that was in the 70s. No, I don't remember if it was in the 60s. Yeah, I think that, yeah, the 60s we lived on 2nd Street and didn't have the Golden Coach then. And my dad was always, I guess, at the 400 Club or the City Line Diner. I was involved in the City Line Diner a lot. And then we opened up the Golden Coach because my parents, that's right, we'd been to the Bahamas and my dad saw a salad bar, so he put a salad bar in at the Golden Coast. So we had that as a restaurant for a few years. And then I remember my mom waking me up. I was about 15, and middle of the night, and her and my dad had been out, and they said, "We're changing. Sabrina, wake up. We just met this person. I don't want to mention his name. Plus, that's anyways." And they'd been to a place. I think it might have been called the Underground in Harrisburg. Have you heard that? Or okay, I have to look into it. I thought that I keep wanting to say the Underground. And they'd been there and it was real late. And they goes, "We're changing the Golden Coach. We met this fabulous guy. We're changing the Golden Coach, the restaurant, into a disco." I was like, "Oh, okay, it sounded fabulous, So that's what we did right away. It was the most, I think about now, what a great childhood, teenage years I had. I couldn't believe it. they came in, all these wonderful, handsome gay men, and just took over. And we had this amazing chandelier. I've some pictures, but I'm going to work out and getting some more. We had been to Italy. My mom was from England, so we went there a few times. And my dad remember being in a boutique in Italy, and they had these giant chandeliers, and my dad bought one. So it came back to Harrisburg, and it was so big they had to cut off a lot of it, like about 10 feet, and then they hung it up in the restaurant. So anyways, then when the gay bar, when it was changed into a disco, so I won't want to say gay, it was a mixed crowd. It changed to the Golden Coach. There's one guy, he's a good friend of mine, so sweet, him and his brother. They hooked up the gels and the lights, and so they turned that into the light show. They put the parquet floor on, moved the tables out, got the mylar, covered the windows so people couldn't see in and out, and that turned into a disco. And then I was the hat check girl. My mom worked the door, and it was just amazing. It was a mixed crowd. I met, as before it was just my mom's friend, but that's when I had all these great gay friends, girls and guys, dancing, and I was like the mascot. They would bring me ice cream sundaes, and it's just it was wonderful. Halloween, dressed up in drag with I remember one guy with the mustache and the peacock feathers, and that was a great time. Let's see, and so that was the Golden Coach. Oh, we turned the fireplace into the DJ booth. Oh man, was that ever cool? So most everybody that worked there was gay, except for the once in a while my brother would work there, but I was there all the time because I just loved it. And my mom worked the door. And then there was this mixed crowd, and it wasn't, there was no judgment or any problem. Everybody just got along, and everybody's there to have fun and dance. There were some crazy things my dad had to get involved in, but that was just people trying to get in that were mean, but nothing. I don't recall any how do we say, racial or anything like that, any discrimination or any. Now I heard it in school. When I went to school one day, all my friends said, Sabrina, their teacher talking about your dad. And I remember running in there. I was very bold when I was back then. Now I'm such a mellow person. And I went in, and he was bringing up, I guess my dad was on this radio show, which I'd like to find out about that too. And they would talk about my dad a lot. It was like a live talk, like that guy who just passed away, one of those type of shows. And he was always talking about my dad, which I didn't know. And he was talking about you. They said, yes, Sabrina, he's in the teachers, and they were talking about your dad in the gay bar and being a gay. And I went in there, I'm trying to remember what I said, but I just said, I think I just stood up. I said, you don't even know my parents, and it doesn't matter if Papa is gay or not. I don't think you'd be able to go there. So I do remember that a lot, and a lot of things in the town we lived, because we moved from Harrisburg to Dauphin because we got a fabulous house, but they were kind of, a lot of them didn't understand my parents, and they would say, oh, your dad's gay because he tucks his pants in his boots. Back then, we just thought that was funny. I was like, oh my God, right? So, yeah, that was an amazing time, the Golden Coach. And then my parents, with the person who opened the coach with him, it's George Smith. That's who it is. I'm not talking to him right now. But anyways, he would open clubs all over. And my parents would go like on the weekend to Washington, because he opened up one there, Washington Square. When I was 15, I think, or 16, I got to go to Studio 54. That was fun with my mom and dad, and they opened the rope and we walked right in. So then we had the Golden Coach. Then remember the guy, our friend Ronnie Boudreau, who opened up Class 1. He wanted to buy the Golden Coach. He was obsessed with it. So instead of buying it, I don't know what happened. He opened Class 1. And then now as I got older, I look back and see how attention span of a nightclub doesn't last long, so it had already had a good run for like 2 years. And I remember I still have weird nightmares about that too, of it being empty, because it was so sad, because you're going from this packed thing with the music and everything and then everyone stopped going. So then they sold that. And then one of our friends who had worked with us, Jeff McDonald, and his sister Jill McDonald, she was gay, she was cool. And then he had another brother who was straight, but Jeff McDonald, and my dad, I think Jeff did most of the work, I believe, got the club on Front Street called Orpheus, and that was an after hours place. That was gay, and it was wild, it was. And I have pictures of my mom with Danny Hartman in there, and we'd go in there afterwards. It was fun though, because my parents weren't working, so we just go there and hang out and partake in the 70s stuff. So no, and then in between that, there was another one. That's right, that they opened up, but I think it was only open for maybe a weekend. It was called the Rose Garden, and that was near Jerry Street. And I keep trying to find out where that was, but that was really cool. And but it didn't last. I don't think anybody showed up, but I remember some artist painting, murals of Alice in Wonderland, and all these really neat, those old chairs in there. And it was all mid-century modern, and they opened that up, but it didn't last long. So I don't know what happened to liquor license, or nobody showed up. So my dad just, that never amounted to anything. So yeah, then Orpheus, and then that's about it for Harrisburg. And then my dad and mom, because we were in the 70s and we partied a lot. And it's funny, now I'm older. When I moved back in with my mom, she always blamed my dad for everything, but my mom made the decisions. It was her who woke me up and said, we're changing to the Golden Coach. It was her to say, oh, we're selling the coach and we're buying a sailboat and moved to Florida. And that's what we did. Then we moved to Florida and lived on a sailboat and went to the Monster in Key West. Had the boat down in Key West. Oh, that was fun. That was fun. Yeah. So that's about all I have right now on that. I mean, I'm going to work into some more. And like I said, I have a good relationship now with my sister, and I'm going to her storage and dig around and get some pictures and stuff.
Okay, good. Do you recall where the Golden Coach was located?
Yeah, on Lingostown Road.
Okay. Do you know about where on Lingostown Road?
Yeah, and I do have a couple old faded pictures of that, and I think my sister has more. Yeah, and then my sister just sent me the card, the business card of it. Yes, it's the lot is still there. There's something built there now, but it was right next to 3B's, where Aruga's is there, that corner. Okay. So we loved 3B's. And at that time, it was really neat because behind there was like a pond, and we were just little kids then when it was the restaurant, and when my dad wasn't making us work. He did make us work a lot, I'm glad. We were getting tadpoles and stuff. And then it was weird. It was an A-frame there. And somebody came and got that, bought it with a helicopter and took it away. And then next door to the Golden Coach was a beauty parlor, and it was attached. Some shady stuff happened there. I mean, mommy, just to tell you, I mean, I don't care what something, you want to hear it? So next door was a beauty parlor, and I remember going in there, and because we were always with my parents, always, and I'd taken my sister, dragging her in there, and as I got older, I was like, there was never any customers in there. No one was ever getting their hair done. Well, I always find stuff. I was an explorer, found these negligees and put them on, and my sister came into the Golden Coach. My dad had a fit. So then, as I got older, a few years later, that place got raided. They got raided and closed down. It was call girls, but the politicians from the state, it was kind of kept in the dark because the clientele that were going there, they were from the States. But then I looked back, oh, no wonder you didn't want me having those negligees on. So, yeah. So yeah, that was that there, and I didn't even think it had a name. It had the setup for her to get your hair done. I never saw anyone getting their hair done.
Okay. Let's see. Orpheus, you mentioned that bar, and where was that located?
That was on Front Street. I drive by there occasionally, and it's strange seeing that area. because that was a party heavy 70s time for us in our life. That's why we left to go to Florida. It's time to get away. But it was it's not there now. So I'm trying to think now, what's that one? Like there was is it the Purple Onion that was up there? I don't know. So it's like that past McDonald's. No, they moved McDonald's, the old McDonald's. So it's on Front Street, on the way to right before, because then we had a antique shop too. The building's still there. What's that? Rockville, is it called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was right before that. Just
Okay.
a small place that had a I have some pictures of that in the inside, unfortunately not the outside. And Jeff McDonald was the DJ there. And it was done with like the aluminum wall. It just had a dance floor and then a back room that was really bad. Guys had a lot of fun in that back room. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Was it near the Glass Lounge or
Yeah. Yes, that's what I was going to say. The Glass Lounge. Yeah, it was near that.
okay.
Yeah. It was just a 1-story. No, so I was upstairs there. Well, it was 2 stories. I remember being up. Yeah, it was 2-story, and then there was a back room too. That stuff went on. It was fun though. And
Because there was also the D-Gem up there.
yes, I remember the DJ.
Yeah.
Was that the girls go there? Was that more girls bar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there too. Yeah, I went there. Yeah.
But it wasn't
And
that. It
then,
wasn't that building.
No, it wasn't. No, this building's torn down for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It's right before. Okay, is the Glass Lounge is still open, right? You can go there and eat. Yeah, because my friend who lives near me is a bartender there, so it's not too much farther than that. Of course, on that side, and yeah, it's gone. It was a pretty beat up because we were like, when we were over now because we've gone down from the Golden Coast to that, but it is what it is. It was dumpy, but yeah, so it's not there anymore. And unfortunately, my dear friend Jeff McDonald's, he's been gone for a long time.
Let's see. Oh, we'll talk a little bit about the Commerce Diner then.
Yeah, and I was real little then. My friend, he could give us some good stories, but I'm not talking to him right now. But which I didn't know. He said, "Oh, the Commerce Bar was the best. Your dad was so smart." This is my friend who opened up the coach of this, George. Your dad was so smart. After everyone would get the clock bar, then the hookup would be the Commerce Bar. And that was right up the street. So that's where everybody would go and hook up afterwards, to meet whoever they wanted to, get in relationship with or whatever. And I was just a little girl at that time. So I just remember going there and I was real little. So like 4 or 5, just going there and having cheeseburgers and going to be in a parade, I remember. But my dad, I forget what happened there. I just remember that. So yeah, that's about all I know. I'm trying to find, I wish, like I said, my dad must have had all those pictures. I remember what it looked like vaguely. It was a small place with the booths and the little jukeboxes at the table. In fact, my dad would bring me, that's where I got into music. He would bring me all the records. I remember my first one I liked was Rolling Stones. And he would bring me all those when they changed the records out. And that was like 65, I'd say. Unfortunately, that's all I know about the Commerce Bar. And then we opened up another place on the Clay Street that was candy shop or like a soda fountain bar. And that didn't last long. And then my dear brother from my mom's first husband, he had a pool hall there, which I'm finding out more about now too. I don't even know the name of it, but it's like, oh yeah, that place was great. Your brother had the pool hall. Yeah, remember that candy store. So I loved it. So yeah, that's all the Commerce. City Line Diner I know a little more about.
Was the City Line Diner someplace that gay people went, or was it more just the Commerce?
I think it was just a diner. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was just a diner. I do remember though that this kind of interesting story. I was 11, and for some reason, this man got in a fight with my dad, and he said I was my first day waitressing too. He says, "I'm going to tell tell the county or whatever about her working here underage." Well, then this guy that was in 71, and then in 76, I remember his name too, Butch. He was became boyfriends of one of my good friends who did my mom's hair. And I was like, back then he was like this mean, horrible. And I was like, oh, he was such a nice guy. And he was gay. I didn't know. I don't know what he got mad about my dad about. So, you know, and my dad, he was not, I think they kept a lot of things that they didn't talk about, you know, so they wouldn't, not because he was embarrassed, because he didn't want to get people in trouble or close down, you know. Things like that. So because there was all kinds of things. Like I'd always be dressed in Pendleton, and some guy would be at the back of the door with all these clothes, but I didn't know about it, you know, only just so, you know, and plus I was little. I'm sure other people knew this story. My mom, unfortunately, knew all of them, you know. So I wish I could be of more help.
Is your mom passed away, or?
Yeah, she did. She passed away in I moved back to Pennsylvania in 2011, and I'm glad I was able to be with her. And she passed away in 2014. Yeah, 2014. And she had so many stories, gosh. But my sister has a memory like her, and she has things that we should have recorded my mom, but you never think. And I know you don't want to do that because you don't want to think that they're going to leave. But in fact, she found some poems that my mom had. So she has a good memory, my sister. So she might be able to, I mean, just stuff that I was like, how do you even know all that? So it's just more like my mom that way. So I'll work on that. And she's doing really good. So we're going to be hooking up soon. I wish I could share more, but I'm working on it.
Well, what was your mother's name?
Maureen Goodman from England, but they called her Marty. And that name started at the Clock Bar, and I don't know why. Hey, Marty. And they were going to call the Golden Coach Dirty Marty. So, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember much about the patrons of the bar? Was it mostly well, at least start with the Clock Bar, I guess. Was it mostly men at that point? Were there women that would come in there? And also, what about people of color, Black people, and so on?
Yeah, I don't know a lot of people that would come to my house. I told you, my mom said, oh, they friends from the Clock Bar, and they were there was two gentlemen, and they didn't come together, and they were two gay men that would come in, and so I knew them. I really didn't know the clientele there, so I couldn't, you know, I don't want to say something I don't know anything about. You know.
What about some of the other
And
bars?
then I have a lot of pictures of the Golden Coach. I'm getting more, and that was always a diverse crowd. And there was girls that were bisexual. I remember that. No, because my mother was. Okay. So yeah, that's a lot. There's my mom, and a couple gay girls, but they didn't like, you know, they were in love with me. I remember that. And it was too frilly for them. They would go to D-Gem, and they took me there too, and I was underage. A lot of that. So I don't think it was some nights gay, some nights straight. It was always that way. But I do believe, well, I think the gay guys just started moving out of Harrisburg and wanted more of a, you know, more their crowd, because I do remember some complaints, so it's getting too straight. I do remember that, and that made me so sad. You know? Yeah. But that was all, you know, with interracial couples. I don't know if we still say that these days. Do we say interracial? Because I don't want to be wrong, say the wrong thing. And I pictures of my mom and dad, you know, with you know, they never judged them. In fact, back to the City Line Diner, the partner of my dad's, Dick, married Young, who was a lady from Vietnam. And she was wonderful, and she babysat us all the time, and taught my mom how to make kimchi. So I was always around. And there's a sad story about the City Line Diner. I could tell you about that. If you, I might as well just throw it in there now. There was a girl named Cookie who worked there, who my mom became friends with, and she had a girlfriend who was in jail, and my mom kind of took this girl, and there was a little, oh yeah, there was a little like shack place. My place is kind of like a shack, not I think of it small, but it was a little tiny place where someone lived right behind the City Line Diner. And Cookie and this girl lived there, and then the girl went to jail, and she was trying to get away from her because she was abusive. And I remember me being nosy, finding all these letters up in Dolphin, in our big, we had a big like mansion, I guess, of from this person to Cookie. And I don't remember if this is before this had happened or not, but yeah, I think it's after. So anyways, I was out front in the car, and Cookies, the girl got out on parole, and they were gay. I don't know if I mentioned that. They were gay too, or lovers. And Cookie got out on patrol, and I was in the car, and the parole officer was there, and she killed the girl, Cookie, and stabbed the parole officer with a fork. Yeah. So I'm sad that that happened, but I'll say that my parents were always very open and always tried to do the right thing. That was really sad. And I was like about 10 or probably less than that, 10. I'm sat in the car. And I don't know if my mom was in the car, but I think she went in the diner to tell my dad what was going on. And in a split second, she was murdered. Yeah. And that was, there were some couple, I guess that was my first memory of two gay girls, but my mom never explained it. I never even thought of thinking about it, But yeah, so that was sad. So then that happened. Yeah, I'm come now. I'm going to talk about, I think, more things that come back to my head,
You mentioned a little bit about like when you were in school and kids would talk about different things about your family. What do you recall any stories about that in terms of, how did they know like that you had family that were involved with gay bars and stuff? Did they just
I don't, yeah, I think it was that talk show, because I don't know. A lot of my girlfriends, they hung out with me. See, I'm always my sister's more intuitive, and I was very naive, and I thought everybody got along. And then I didn't know these stories too, that I had, well, guys that I hung out with, just friends. I'd have big parties. It was fun. I was the party host. Well, I found out that they stopped coming up to our house because they found out that so and so was gay, and my parents let them up there. So things that like that, I was a bit naive and not known a lot, except for that one time I do remember that that teacher talking about my dad, and I went and told him off. I don't remember what I said, but I told him off. So my friends, everybody always thought I was cool. I guess I was kind of cool having that. My parents came to the school and smoked pot with us. They were crazy on our last day. So yeah, nothing else. Luckily, things are not as mean as they got. You know what I mean? I don't think it was were judged. They thought, I know a couple of my teachers came in there, and I remember that because the teacher said, "Oh, you stopped eating ice cream." I'm like, what a weirdo. Why were you even looking at me then? Just because he thought I lost weight. But yeah, I remember the teachers coming in, so they were quite interested, So I didn't hear too much negative stuff about that. And I'm from the family that like my parents, like, they just don't dwell on that kind of things, And if they did talk about it, it was low, but most everything was talked about with me.
We're going to wrap up the interview right now with Sabrina Bledsoe. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for agreeing to be interviewed.
Sure.
You've got some fascinating stories to share about your family's history with gay bars in the area.